I flew to Texas without warning and found my daughter alone, in the middle of emergency surgery to deliver my first grandchild. Her husband, the man whose lavish lifestyle I was funding, was out celebrating with friends, so I made one phone call and closed their joint account. An hour later, his entire world came crashing down. Before we get into it, I'd love to know, what city are you watching from today? And be sure to subscribe for our daily stories. Okay, let's head to that hospital. I have built my empire on a single, unshakable principle. Trust your gut. My gut has guided me through hostile takeovers, through market crashes, and through 1,000 high-stakes negotiations. And for the last 2 years, my gut has been telling me that my son-in-law, Greg, is a fraud. He was perfect on paper. He was handsome, charismatic, and came from a good family. He had swept my daughter, my brilliant, kind-hearted Amelia, off her feet. I had, with some reluctance, given them my blessing. More than that, I had given them my support. I had set them up in a beautiful home in Dallas. I had established a generous joint bank account for them, a safety net, to ensure my daughter, who is now pregnant with my first grandchild, would never have to worry about a thing. It was my way of showing my love from a distance, as my own business kept me 1,000 miles away. But my gut never liked them. I saw it in the way his eyes would linger a little too long on a new expensive watch. I heard it in the way he would talk more about the next big deal than he would about my daughter's well-being. He was a man who was in love with the lifestyle my money provided, and I had a deep and deeply unsettling feeling that he was only in love with my daughter by association. The phone call came on a Tuesday afternoon. I was in a board meeting in New York, $100 million merger on the table. My phone buzzed, and I saw my daughter's name. I immediately excused myself. Her voice on the other end was a small, terrified whisper. "Dad," she said, and I could hear the sterile beeping sounds of a hospital in the background. I'm at the hospital. The baby, the doctors say he's coming early. There are some complications. They're taking me in for an emergency C-section right now." The world seemed to stop. "Where is Greg?" I asked, my own voice a low, urgent thing. "He's on his way," she said, though her voice held a flicker of something I couldn't quite place. "He had a big, important work dinner he couldn't get out of, but he's coming. I'm scared, Dad." "Don't be scared, sweetheart," I said, my own paternal instinct a roaring fire in my chest. "You are the strongest person I know. I'm on my way." I walked back into that board meeting, the most important meeting of my quarter, and I said 4 words to my stunned colleagues. The deal is off. I walked out, my only thought to get to my daughter. As I sat on my private jet, the engine screaming as we made the emergency flight to Texas, I tried to call my son-in-law's cell phone. No answer. I tried again, straight to voicemail. A cold, ugly, and deeply familiar suspicion began to form in the pit of my stomach. When I arrived at the hospital, my worst fears were realized. The maternity ward's waiting room was empty. I found a nurse at the main desk. "My daughter," I said, my voice a little too loud, "Amelia Rhodes. She was admitted for an emergency C-section. Where is her husband, Greg?"
The nurse looked at me with a sad, pitying expression that I knew all too well. "She's in surgery right now, sir," she said quietly. "She's been in for about an hour. And no, sir, no one has been here with her. She has been completely and totally alone." The ugly suspicion I had been nursing about my son-in-law for the past 2 years had just, in that single terrible moment, crystallized into a hard and unforgivable fact. I thanked the nurse, my voice a low, steady thing that did not betray the raging, volcanic fury that was building in my chest. I sat down on one of the hard plastic chairs. the silence of the waiting room, a stark and terrible contrast to the life and death drama that was unfolding just a few doors down the hall. My daughter, my Amelia, was in there, fighting for her life and the life of my grandchild, and her husband, the man who was supposed to be her rock, her protector, was not here. I pulled out my phone. My first call was to his cell. It rang once, twice, 3 times, and then went to his obnoxious, upbeat voicemail. "Hey, you've reached Greg. Leave a message." I did not leave a message. I tried again. This time he answered, but not with a frantic, worried voice. His voice was loud, slurred, and annoyed at the interruption. And in the background I could hear it, not the quiet hum of a worried husband in a hospital, but the loud, boisterous sound of a party, the clinking of glasses, the roar of laughter, the thumping bass of music. "Julian, hey!" he shouted over the noise. "What's up? Can't talk long, man. We're right in the middle of a celebration." "A celebration?" I asked, my own voice now a quiet, dangerous thing. "What exactly are you celebrating, Greg?" "The big deal, Julian, the one I told you about. It finally closed this afternoon. It's a huge win for us, for the family. I'm wining and dining the investors right now, making it rain." I closed my eyes, the rage in my chest so profound it was almost a physical pain. "Your wife, Greg," I said, a low, steady whisper. "Your pregnant wife is in the middle of emergency surgery. Your child is being born right now, and you are at a party." There was a brief pause on the other end of the line, and then a short, dismissive laugh. Yeah, I know, it's all happening, right? Look, the doctors have it under control. I'll head over to the hospital in a little while. I've got to schmooze with these guys. This is important. This is for the family, you know. I knew with an absolute and total certainty what family he was talking about, and it was not mine. I did not yell. I did not scream. I just said in a quiet, final voice, "I see." And I hung up the phone. He had made his choice. He had chosen a party over his wife. He had chosen a business deal over the birth of his own child. He had chosen himself. And now I was going to make my own choice. The cold, quiet rage in my heart had now solidified into a single, sharp, and beautifully clear point of purpose. The time of quiet suspicion was over. It was time for action. I pulled out my phone again. I scrolled through my contacts, past my daughter's name, past the names of my business partners, until I found the one I was looking for. Michael Vance, my private banker, a man who was paid a great deal of money to be available to me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. He answered on the first ring, his voice crisp and professional, even at this late hour. "Michael, it's Julian," I said, my own voice now a calm, quiet instrument of war. "I need you to do something for me. It is a matter of the utmost urgency."
"Of course, Julian," he replied without hesitation. "What do you need?" "The joint trust account I established for my daughter, Amelia, and her husband, Greg," I began. "I want you to freeze it, effective immediately." There was a brief, surprised pause on the other end of the line. "Freeze it, sir? Are you certain? It's a significant portfolio, and—" "I am certain," I cut him off, my voice leaving no room for argument. "And that is not all. I want you to draft the paperwork to transfer every single cent of that account, every stock, every bond, every liquid asset into a new, private, and impenetrable trust. The sole beneficiary of that new trust will be my daughter, Amelia, and," I added, my own voice catching for a fraction of a second, "her newborn child." "Understood, Julian." the banker said, the sound of his keyboard already clicking in the background. "And Mr. Rhodes?" "He is to have no access," I said, my voice now a final, quiet whisper of absolute finality. "Ever again. His name is to be removed from all of our family's financial holdings. You will send him a formal and very brief notification to that effect in the morning. Consider his financial relationship with my family and with my fortune to be permanently and irrevocably terminated." I hung up the phone. The deed was done. In a single 2-minute phone call, I had quietly and completely dismantled my son-in-law's entire comfortable world. He had called his little party a huge win for the family. He was about to find out, in the most public and humiliating way possible, what a catastrophic, life-altering loss felt like. Just as I was putting my phone away, a surgeon in blue scrubs, a woman with tired but kind eyes, pushed through the double doors. "Mr. Rhodes," she asked. I was on my feet in an instant. "My daughter, is she okay?" "She was magnificent," the doctor said, a warm, genuine smile on her face. "The surgery was complicated, but she was a fighter. She is stable and on her way to the recovery room now." Then she paused, and her own eyes began to shine with a beautiful professional joy. "And you, sir, have a healthy and very beautiful baby granddaughter." A wave of relief so profound, so absolute, that it almost buckled my knees, washed over me. A granddaughter. I was a grandfather. In the middle of this terrible, ugly betrayal, a new, perfect, and innocent life had just entered the world. A new legacy. A new reason to fight. I saw her a little while later, through the large plate-glass window of the nursery. She was so small, so perfect, her tiny hands curled into tiny, perfect fists. And as I stood there, looking at this new, beautiful life, the last of my own hesitation, the last of any doubt I might have had about the brutal act I had just committed, vanished. I had made the right choice. I was sitting by my own daughter's, Amelia's bedside an hour later, holding my new granddaughter in my arms, when he finally decided to show up. My son-in-law, Greg, strolled out of the elevator, not with the frantic, worried energy of a new father, but with the cool, casual swagger of a man who had just come from a long, leisurely lunch. He was still wearing his expensive suit from his business deal, and he smelled faintly but unmistakably of champagne.
"Julian!" he exclaimed, his voice a little too loud in the quiet hospital corridor. "Hey, so is this the little princess?" I looked at him, at his smiling, clueless face, a man so completely absorbed in his own self-importance that he was blind to the storm that was about to break over his head. He walked into my daughter, Amelia's hospital room, a bouquet of cheap gas station flowers in his hand, a performative prop for the role of the doting husband he was now finally ready to play. "There she is," he boomed, his voice too loud for the quiet, healing space. "The new mother! And where is my little princess?" Amelia, who was pale and weak, but with a new, quiet strength in her eyes, just looked at him with a cold, tired expression I had never seen from her before. She had been a victim of his charm for too long. Not anymore. "She's in the nursery, Greg," she said, her voice a flat, emotionless thing. "Well, let's go see her," he said. But before he could move, a woman in a neat, professional uniform knocked gently on the open door and stepped inside. She was a hospital administrator, and she was holding a tablet. "Mr. and Mrs. Rhodes," she began, her voice a polite but firm instrument of business. "I am so sorry to interrupt, but before we can formally admit your beautiful new daughter to the neonatal unit for observation, hospital policy requires that we take a deposit for the initial costs of the emergency surgery and the associated care." She looked down at her tablet. "The preliminary deposit will be $25,000. Greg did not flinch. This was a stage, and he was the star. He puffed out his expensive alligator skin wallet from his pocket in a gesture of casual, confident wealth, clearly designed to impress me. "Of course," he said with a magnanimous wave of his hand. "Put it on this." He handed the administrator his gleaming platinum credit card. The administrator swiped the card through the small reader attached to her tablet. We all waited. A small, quiet, and deeply, deeply satisfying beep. She looked at the screen, a look of polite, professional apology on her face. "I'm so sorry, sir," she said. "It's been declined." Greg's own confident smile vanished. "What?" he stammered. "That's impossible. Run it again." She did. The same quiet, final beep. "Declined," she repeated. "There must be a mistake with your machine," he said, his voice now a little frantic as he fumbled in his wallet for another card. "Here, try this one. It's the joint debit card." She swiped the second card. The result was the same. "Declined for insufficient funds, sir," she said, her voice now a little cooler. I watched as the color drained from my son-in-law's face. I watched as he pulled out his phone, his hands now trembling, and frantically tried to open his banking app. I watched as his confident, arrogant swagger completely and totally dissolved into a new, raw, and animal panic. I could see the screen of his phone from where I was standing. I could see the big, bold, beautiful, and absolutely unforgiving number at the top of his account statement. 0. He looked up from his phone, his face a mask of pure white and abject horror. He looked at me, at my calm, silent, and unreadable expression. And in that single, terrible moment, in the quiet of his wife's hospital room, he finally and completely understood. He lost his mind. "Julian, I don't understand," he stammered, his voice a pathetic, pleading whisper. "The account, it's empty. The money, it's all gone." I calmly took my own personal black card from my wallet and handed it to the now very uncomfortable hospital administrator. "Put the entire deposit on this," I said quietly, "and please send any and all future bills for my daughter and my granddaughter directly to my office." The administrator, with a look of profound relief, quickly finished the transaction and then wisely disappeared, leaving the three of us in a new and terrible silence. I stood up from my chair and walked over to my son-in-law. "There is no mistake, Greg," I said, my voice as cold and as hard as the polished marble floor of a tomb. "The account is not empty. The account is closed. The money you were so happily celebrating with this afternoon, the money that pays for the beautiful house you live in, the expensive car you drive, the designer clothes on your back, it was never your money. It was mine. It was a gift. A safety net that I gave to my daughter to ensure her security and her happiness." I took a step closer, my own voice now a low, dangerous whisper. "And in the last 3 hours, you have proven to me, beyond any shadow of a doubt, that you are the single greatest threat to both. You did not just miss a phone call, Greg. You abandoned my daughter while she was in the middle of a life-threatening surgery. You chose a champagne celebration with your friends over the birth of your own child." I let the ugly, unforgivable truth of his actions hang in the air between us. "So the party is over," I said, my voice a final, quiet judgment. "From this day forward, you are on your own. The trust is gone, the safety net is gone. You will support my daughter and my granddaughter with the sweat of your own brow. You will get a real job. You will learn what it is to be a man, a husband, and a father. Or," I paused, letting the full weight of my final promise settle upon him, "you will lose them both. The choice is now, finally and completely yours." He just stood there, a broken, defeated man, as I turned my back on him and went to my daughter's side. The months that followed were a quiet and difficult reconstruction. Greg did not, to my surprise, collapse. Faced with the stark, terrifying reality of his own uselessness, a new and unfamiliar man began to emerge. He sold his expensive car. He got a job, a real job, not as a flashy consultant, but as a junior salesman at a company that required him to actually work for a living. It was hard, and it was humbling, and for the first time I began to see a flicker of the man my daughter had once believed he could be. I did not restore his access to my fortune. That door was closed forever. But I did not stand in the way of him trying to repair his own family. It has been a year now. I am in my daughter's living room, not the one I had bought for them, but a smaller, more modest, and infinitely happier home that they are paying for themselves. My daughter, Amelia, is a different woman. The quiet, uncertain girl who was so easily manipulated by her charming husband is gone. In her place is a strong, confident mother, a woman who now knows her own worth. And I am sitting in an armchair, not as a visiting dignitary, but as a grandfather. I am holding my 1-year-old granddaughter, and on the floor, playing with the 7 simple wooden blocks, are my granddaughter and her father, my son-in-law, Greg. He is not a rich man anymore, but he is, I realize, finally and truly a family man. I had spent my life building a financial empire, a fortress of money I thought would protect my daughter from the world. But I was wrong. My true power was not in my bank account. It was in my love for her. And my greatest victory was not in cutting him off. It was in the quiet, profound, and deeply satisfying act of forcing him, through a single, necessary act of financial fury, to finally and truly grow up. An absolutely powerful story of a father's love and a son-in-law who was forced to learn a very hard lesson. What a satisfying and realistic resolution. What do you think of the way the father, Julian, handled the situation? Let us know in the comments below. If you are cheering for this father's righteous anger, please show your support by hitting that like button, and be sure to subscribe for more incredible stories of karma and justice. Don't forget to click the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.